All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on Chapter 2, Module 5, Energy, Flows, and Feedbacks. Make sure you read the learning objectives before you go through the chapter. Let's get comfortable with some of these words like distinguish, discuss, and explain. You will see them on FRQs, so make sure you read them, like I said, before you start the chapter, and then try to answer them when you're done. This first table up here, common units of energy and their conversion into joules. Know this, memorize it. You need to learn this stuff right here. Energy is a fundamental component into environmental systems. Remember that sun is our ultimate source, our primary source of energy here on Earth. It's electromagnetic radiation. Energy and power are not the same thing. When you see a section where it lists different things, like the forms of energy here, go ahead and write those down. It's a great way to summarize what you're reading. Don't forget to include examples. Kinetic energy, some examples are the car moving, the sound, and the temperature. You're coming along to a do the math part. When you get to the do the math, actually do these. You're going to see a lot of dimensional analysis throughout this year, so you need to be comfortable with how to convert through units and do dimensional analysis. We then get into the laws of thermodynamics and how they describe how energy behaves. Once again, when it lists different things, write them down. It's a good way to summarize them. The first law of thermodynamics, energy is neither created nor destroyed. This essentially says you can't get something from nothing. The second law of thermodynamics, when energy is transformed, the quantity remains, but the ability to do work diminishes, or the ability towards it diminishes. You guys remember the food chain from biology, the 10% rule? Every time you go up a level in the food chain, it's only 10% being passed on, and 90% is released as waste energy. So once again, energy efficiency diminishes and it produces waste energy. This is a really interesting diagram right here. It shows that at each opportunity or level, energy is lost. So in this, you can see the transfer of energy from the power plant to the power poles. From here, 35% of the energy gets transferred and 65% is released as heat. And then we go on to the incandescent light bulb, where even though 90% of the energy goes from the power lines to the incandescent light bulb, from there, 95% is lost as heat. 5% of the energy is what is producing the light. That is a lot of energy lost for that. When you have an increase in efficiency, you have a decrease in waste. Let's go on to matter and energy flow. A couple of things that I noted in here that I didn't do a post-it for. Remember, energy always flows from hot to cold. Open versus cold systems, this is a good diagram to become familiar with. Open systems, more common. Energy is an example. Closed systems, less common. Mass is an example. When we have our input and our output equal, we're in a steady state. Let's go on to feedbacks. Negative feedbacks are more common. They tend to return to their original state. But in a positive feedback, you need to remember that it feeds on itself, like glaciers melting. When the glaciers melt, we see more melting, more molecules melting. Everything is affected more in this situation. Population is another example of a positive feedback. And just to clarify, you guys, positive is not necessarily good, negative is not necessarily bad. Positive just says that it amplifies change, where negative resists change. So that brings us to the end of Chapter 2, Module 5. Try these review questions. If you can, if you have questions on them, let me know. One thing I want to bring to your attention is that a lot of people will just skip the reading on working towards sustainability or the end of the chapter reading. This was actually the basis of an FRQ in 2015 about the Florida Everglades. Read these. So we're now at the end of the unit, and they are at the end of the chapter. Look over the learning objectives, make sure you can answer them. They go over them really well here at the end of this section. Try the practice questions for the practice questions as well as the practice question FRQ. All right, we're going to continue next with chapter 3. So I will be back with more then.